and we're here with Fresh Chats with Steph, and I have two awesome guests tonight, and they're going to introduce themselves. Let's start to my right.
Hi, my name is Jelena Copeland, and I am an elementary school teacher. I teach 4th grade right now. I've been an educator for 11 years.
Awesome.
Oh man, mine's a little too long. So I'm Jay Bill. I'm the CEO of INC Tutoring based here in Dallas. Actually, my background in education was I taught high school math for 4.5 years in the classroom. Then went to being a campus instructional coach, then a district instructional coach for DeSoto. Then moved on to become an adjunct professor at a university for mathematics, and then started my tutoring company a few years ago. At this moment, we're now the leading African-American owned tutoring company in DFW.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Congratulations.
Appreciate it. With 35 consultants nationwide, and we operate nationally.
Woo. All right, take all that in. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us, please share, invite other people, join the conversation. It's going to be a good one tonight. We're talking about relevant math instruction that gets students engaged. And This is such a big and important topic in education. When we reached out and asked teachers, what are some things you want to talk about? Math kept coming up over and over again when we talk about being fresh. They say, how do I do it? Or what pieces of advice would you give me to make it more fresh in the math classroom? So here we are. I have two people that keep it fresh every day of the week with me. And so we're going to dive into this. So let's start out with, I have a little data. I always like to start with a data point. So the ACT tested high schoolers in 2016 when it came to mathematics, right? This test is testing it's supposed to test if they're ready for college level mathematics, okay? So when this test was given to high school seniors in 2016, 50% of white students that took the test were ready for college level math. With Hispanic students, only 27% of them were prepared. And with Black students, only 13% of high school seniors that were graduating and hoping to go to college, most of them, were ready for college level math. And so if those numbers are not staggering enough, we see all the time this push towards STEM. Everybody's saying STEM is the way. STEM, all the jobs of the future are coming in STEM. And the only way to get there is through having these bachelor's degrees in STEM fields. But if you're not ready for college level math when you leave high school, we already know students end up going into remedial classes, wasting college funds, not getting GPA for those. And so there's this vicious cycle. And so that's what we're here to talk about. How do we go about making math that's relevant and fun for students to get engaged in? So because we know this is a national issue, I wanted to get straight into asking you, if you're here, post any questions that you have about math instruction, about achievement, any questions that you want us to address during the chat. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about first, what are the barriers that keep educators from making deep and meaningful connections with math content and the students that they serve? What are the barriers that are keeping? That's kind of where we're going to start. If you're watching, hop in and drop us some. What are some barriers that you see? But I'll let my guests speak to it.
I can go first. In the classroom, I think one of the biggest barriers, especially at the elementary level, is not being able to step outside of the box enough to teach kids the way that you think they can learn. Right now, we're in a cycle where we're trying to get them to be test ready. So I have to push you past what you really know at this time, past kind of what you're catching on to, because I need you to pass the test. And so I think if we go back and scale back and say, hey, you're right here, let me test you right here. And then when you master this, let me test you right here. But right now, I need you up here. So I'm pushing, and kids are like, I don't want to learn this. And we're forcing them to learn something that they don't know how to use in the future. And therefore, it doesn't become fun anymore because I'm made to do it.
I can see that. I totally hated math, and nobody could help me understand, especially by the time I got to high school and had a very smart mouth. Nobody can help me understand why. I don't care. I remember telling my math teacher, I don't care. I won't ever use any of this. I have a calculator. Why? I don't care. You put numbers next to letters. It all sounds dumb, and I don't care.
So I think I have a different perspective on a few things for what kind of makes, there's what barriers that are in the classroom in the high school realm. So one is when I was in the classroom, I kind of tailored all my instruction to how those particular students learn, right? One thing that did help me in instruction was I was bilingual. So I was able to kind of communicate with the students, in how, in their native language too, but at the same point in time, really understanding the students piece by piece, right? So lower level students, higher level students, those that were TAC or GT, those students that were underperforming, being able to kind of group those students with other students who were able to teach them, right? So sometimes you getting to know every student and how, their basic, situations at home even, right? Getting to know them as a person first. So building a relationship part is difficult for some students or some students and some teachers in the high school realm. So that's one barrier. The second barrier is making that particular content absolutely relevant, right? Yep. Being in STEM and in my last role when I was in the district was being the STEAM or STEM instructional coach, right? So taking the kids outside of their normal environments to go to the museum, right? How is a statue made, right? How do we look at these buildings and put a ladder on top of it to discuss the Pythagorean theorem, right? How do we take these particular, concepts, right? And relate these things to real life?
How do we find the area right now?
Yeah. How do we find the area? What are the stop signs to octagon? Right. How do we find the area of octagon? Like all that kind of stuff, you make it relevant to what the students are doing. Maybe they like to, be adventurous and go skydiving. Let's talk about velocity and speed and things of that nature in physics. Right. So all those things, making those particular concepts relevant to the students is another barrier. And the third barrier is passion. I don't see enough teachers that claim that they love to teach or like to teach, but they don't show the passion and excitement in the classroom. You cannot deliver content to a student and not be passionate about what you teach. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't correlate well. So you have to include and infuse passion in everything that you teach, period.
Let me tell you something. I remember one of the best teachers, in my opinion, that I've ever led. He was so passionate about the content. I've mentioned this before, like that he would just go off on the whole thing. Like if you talked bad about math, which I don't talk bad about math, but I'm always like, I was an ELA teacher, so I'm like, art is a language, and if you can master how to use language, then you can change the world, and you can do. And then he'll start talking about math, and we all sound very weird, but we're very passionate about our own stuff. Like my subject is the best one, because let me tell you something: if you can't talk and write, you can't blah blah blah. But for him, when he started talking about math, he's just like, everything is math. You make a right turn, that's math. You do this, when you put your outfits together, I'm just like, what? Dr. Jones at Ron Clark Academy, she's like that too. She's like, everything is math. And they go on this whole thing, but they're so passionate about it that I feel like if you were my teacher, I might have cared a little more. But since you weren't, my math days were very sad and sorry. And it just is what it is.
See, when you were talking, I was thinking about, like, you remember the puzzles where you have to connect the dots. Okay. In math, for me, what I like to do with my students is help them connect the dots. Like, for instance, for money, I actually give them money. They buy stuff in stores. We have auctions. I teach them how to do it so that they can know how to use it in the future. We play songs. We do competitions. I help them to know that even though it's a hard concept, we can have fun doing it. And that passion comes out because when you see a kid get it, you're like, oh, what can I do? And I think the best teachers are those who struggle, because you can come up with so many ways to help a child that was once like you. So you're coming, okay, if you don't get it this way, let me see how my teacher taught me. Let me know another way to do it, and help kids to know it's more than one way.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because I had a professor tell me, I go to UTA and I had to do a presentation for Research Day, and I'm talking about all my culturally responsive stuff and how we got to make it relevant to the kids. And this professor said, well, I can understand how that works with some subjects, but with math, it's all about, are you a hard worker? If you work hard, then you'll be good at math. And I'm sitting there like, I was somebody that was terrible with math. And for you to tell me that because I wasn't a hard worker, no, I like fundamentally did not understand why we were putting these letters next to these numbers. Letters are for English class, numbers are for math. Like, what are we doing? And it didn't make sense to me. Now, if you put it in the context of the real world, and when I have to use it and not just an equation, that's so abstract. For me as a student, the abstraction of it all, my brain, I was very concrete. And so when you take a concept and it's so abstract, and you tell me, well, just look at these numbers and these symbols, and I'm supposed to figure that doesn't make sense. What does that mean? But if you put it in the context of the money, and you tell me if I have this and you need to buy that, how much money do you need? Then I can say, oh, that's what that letter stands for. The variable that I don't know yet. Oh, okay. And
that's what that X is. Like, for instance, today we're talking about area and perimeter. I teach 4th grade. And so how to make it relevant, I said, most of my kids in my class want to be a YouTuber. So now I can't remember the YouTuber name. They always throw out at me, but they love YouTube. And I said, okay, all of us are wealthy and we are trying to build the biggest house. Who can help me figure out how much we will need? What's the perimeter? Then somebody said a pool. I said, okay, if we have a pool in the middle, how much do we need? And then how much will be for this pool if I'm building your house? I need to know this stuff. So they were like, oh, so we have to make it where you have to find out what your kids like and turn it around to make it where they can use it. And they're excited about it. And they go home and practice without you even asking them to.
One thing I kind of want to expound upon on that is one thing I found out year to year, teaching mathematics and just kind of taking a break from the actual instruction side and saying, hey, let's talk about real life for a second, is talking about investments and how money grows. So I started talking about exponential growth of money. How does interest work actually in the bank? Right?
Grown people need that class.
Interest for real.
I used to work for a bank. I used to work for a credit agency and all that stuff. So how does exponential money work when you're talking about investments? How does exponential money work when you're talking about, growing in interest-bearing accounts, non-interest-bearing accounts? How does all that work? And so when they say, hey, I want to have a Bentley or I want to have a nice car or house, right? How do you get it? Well, the banks are not going to let you have super high daily interest-bearing accounts, right? That's for credit cards, right?
Right.
So you kind of got to instruct the kids on how they can win and how they
to be wise about it. Yeah.
Right.
No,
and
seriously. And adults need to know about that too. Yeah. Well, but if we taught it in school, I guess then they would be adults that already financial literacy. But I feel like people were moving towards financial literacy classes on a secondary level. But I think it was more like an elective. You didn't really have to take it, so it's kind of like optional. Okay.
And it's not.
We do it in my tutoring company now.
Another barrier is not like making it a priority in the home. Like kids need to see how parents budget. They need to see why they're going to use it. Like parents also have to push kids to say, hey, you're going to need this in the future. It's not just something I'm doing to keep you busy. Right. You will need this in the future. Let me tell you how. Not just do it, but let me tell you how. And I think more of our kids will want to do it and find an interest in it because now I want to go to college because I need to know how to build my house or I need to know how to do this. And as parents, we need to just educate ourselves a little bit more so we can push them. That makes sense. Absolutely. And help the teachers because we can't do everything. It's very difficult to start. Like I taught kindergarten. I was actually afraid to move up because I always wanted to teach kindergarten because I was like, I'm starting at the beginning. They don't have that many gaps. And then when I moved to second grade, I was like, oh my gosh, this kid doesn't even know the kindergarten things. And then when I moved to 4th grade, I was like, oh my gosh, he's on a 1st grade level. But because I've already taught those levels, I'm like, okay, let me build you back up. Right. You don't have a good sense of base 10. And so let me help you understand why numbers move over. And once I did that, they're like, oh, now I get it.
Okay, so I have a question to that. When I was growing up, I can remember I might have been 9 or 10. My mom,
4th, 5th grade.
Okay. See, my mom got these little Gerber. How do you say Gerber jars, like baby food used to be in them. Okay, and she made these labels and she put them on there. And so once I started to get allowance, she started teaching me the fundamentals of money management. So one jar was for tithes. She said, off top, you take your $1. It was $10 allowance. You take your $1, you put it in there because you give 10% back to God. He gave it to you. And it was just a very, basic fundamental. I never even quite. So when I got ready to start managing money as an adult, even in school, when I was getting refund checks in college, the first thing I did was took 10% off and took it to church and gave it back to God. Thank you, God, for giving to me. And so it was just those fundamental ideas of breaking down and how to budget. So
that's how I learned percent from the tithe.
Yeah,
literally.
It was a tithe jar. It was, whatever you wanted to do for your snacks for the week. And then there was a jar. I never forget this, how I learned the word miscellaneous. There was a miscellaneous jar, and I could do whatever I wanted to do with that jar. But it was just like a breakdown. So when you said that whole piece about how parents can do it at home, I thought that was important because we may have parents watching that are not educators, but there are still so many things you can do to reinforce it. Which brings me to a hot topic for the week.
Okay.
There was a mother on Facebook. I didn't put this in
I
chat
think I know what
notes.
you're talking about.
Make her 5-year-old pay rent. Did you see this?
I saw that.
Okay, so
I
this
did.
parent says she made her 5-year. This is why I was searching when you were talking. I make my 5-year-old pay rent every week. She gets $7 in allowance, but I explained to her that in the real world, people must spend most of their paycheck on bills with little to spend on themselves. So I make her give me $5 back. That's a lot, though. That's $5 of the dollars. I don't know.
But see, Chloe's 5, and I can give Chloe. Well, her papa comes and he'll say $5. Chloe think $5 is $1. Okay, she's just not there yet, and so
she should
for that baby, she might not understand either.
I make her give me $5 back, $1 for rent, $1 for water, $1 for electricity, $1 for cable, and $1 for food. The other $2 she gets to save or do what she wants to. Now, what she doesn't know is that the $5 is actually going away into her savings account, which I will give back to her when she turns 18. So if she decides to move out on her own, she will have $3,380 to start off. This strategy not only prepares your child for the real world, but when they see how much real bills are, they will appreciate you for giving them a huge discount.
Okay.
What y'all think about that?
I
talk about reinforcement
it's
as
good
a parent.
and bad.
Like, is that a lot? Who wants responsibility? Like,
you want to be a slave to it so early.
She's 5 years old, right?
She's 5.
So
I'm sorry, you can go.
Okay, I was gonna say I think that you can instill developmental concepts about how money is supposed to work and how financial literacy is supposed to be taught at an early age, but I don't think it needs to be involving allowance at this time. Matter of fact, I think she's actually too young to actually have allowance anyway. So I think that when she gets a little older, maybe 2 years older, she should start maybe doing some household duties around the house to earn some sort of money, and then say, hey, here's the concept of an allowance. But I don't think that particular approach may be the best approach. It is an approach and it makes sense for college, although saving up to $3,000 is not really that much at the end of the day, but it's a start to something, right?
Yeah, it's one
of
those
teaching
things,
discipline.
Right? Yeah, it's teaching discipline to be how can I stick to the plan. Right, I'm not gonna go out and detract to the plan and buy me some shoes. I'm not gonna detract from the plan and buy me something that doesn't make sense in terms of what I need. All right, sense. I mean, what I want, I'm buying exactly what I need. Right, and you can save everything else for what you want.
That makes sense. I think conceptually, it's a nice idea. I don't know. I was like, 5 years old. Ooh. I don't know.
I just don't want her to become a slave, or
always thinking that everything.
You're afraid to step outside of it, and it's like you're teaching good things, and I think she can even learn it by looking at her mom and how she spends. But when you become an adult, like for me, everything was like this, and then when some went out of order, I was like, Father, it freaked me out. But now that I know that things go out, I'm not a slave to it anymore.
That's good. Okay, so I want to dive into give us an example, anybody watching, of an activity or lesson where you make math relevant to the kiddos. So we have Joe on the elementary side, but then we have Jay on the secondary side. I'm kind of in the middle with my activity. So if you're a math teacher looking for activity, here we go. What do y'all have? Oh, y'all want me to go first?
You can go first.
Oh, okay.
Jay, you want to go first? Okay. Secondary teachers.
I pulled 2 little activities, y'all, out there in secondary just to kind of give you guys an idea of 2 things. That you're in secondary, 2 important topics right now are financial aid and social media. Mm-hmm. So there's an activity. I went to Mathalicious.
Is that a website?
Mathalicious.
Mathalicious. Like bootylicious, but math.
Just taste it. Mathalicious, right? So one of those things, right? So Mathalicious is a site. It's a resource that you can use in high school and secondary. This particular content is college worth the cost. Right now, we're in a situation where we're in a new stage of millennialism and past that in a new age where people are questioning this: is school really worth it, or should they go out and be an entrepreneur instead? Right. So it's college worth the cost. This is particularly a lesson where students use systems of linear equations to compare how much people with different degrees will earn. right?
Oh.
So should you pursue an MBA or take full-time job right after high school, right? Become an entrepreneur. What income? How does your income matter, and what matters most, right? And students discuss these questions. There's objectives. There's a video that talks about it, kind of primes. It sets the stage for what the students are supposed to learn, how they're supposed to learn it. It has some teacher notes and things like that, and student notes, and then it has some guiding questions like, hey, how much does a year of college cost? Does it always cost $10,000, or does it cost more or less? How long do you estimate it will take to pay off a college degree? What do you think is the ultimate purpose of going to college? Like, it starts to talk about higher order thinking skills, what we call hot questions, right? So then it has Act 1, Act 2, and things of that nature. So being able to kind of figure out using linear equations and graphs, if you guys, I don't know if y'all can see that. You probably can't. But it's a paper right here. If you guys want this activity, just comment and let us know, and I'll be able to share it with you. You break this down to high school diploma, bachelor's degree, how many years, net income since your high school graduation. And so, it talks about just all types of things and explanation and guiding questions for that. So
that'd be cool to do at home too.
Yeah. Talks about commencement and everything. So that's one activity. Yeah. The second activity is about social media.
Right? I love social media.
Social media, that Instagram one is about, that one's about pick me. How can you become popular on Instagram? Right. Mm-hmm. So you talked about earlier about your YouTube and influencers, right? So in this lesson, students actually use linear equations and regression models to and correlation coefficients, which is the R squared, if you guys know about that, to evaluate having more followers, posts, and hashtags that actually make pictures more popular on Instagram. So you can actually, so now the model, when you go on Instagram, they have a data point, right? If you have a business attached to your personal Instagram, you can go into the graph portion. It tells you, how many men, what percentage of men and women look at your stuff, what day is popular, all that good stuff, right? So this particular activity actually dives deep into that and talks about analysis data of brands that use Instagram, right? Decide the ideal amount of daily posts you're supposed to have. How do you interact with the images? How do you interact with the people? And all that stuff. So, just if you want to know about that, just let me know.
Mathalicious.
I'll tell you about it. Okay.
Oh, so Mathalicious.
Okay. I'm gonna tag that in the notes for the show. In the resources. Mathalicious. Okay. Mathalicious. I'll go next. My activity I've done. I do in the training. If you've ever been to the Fresh Classroom training, and it's one of my favorite things to do. It's called the Math Dash. So I believe teachers need to have activities and things to do that are cheap. Because if you're like me, I was coming out of my pocket for my activities in class. So for this activity, you just need index cards. I like colorful ones because that's who I am. And you can use whiteboards or you can use clipboards. So if it depends on the purpose of the activity. If you just wanted to do it quickly, just to have students practicing, you can use whiteboards. If it was something where you're trying to actually assess their ability to answer the questions, you might want to use clipboards and have them with a sheet of paper actually working the problems. Mm-hmm. So this is an alternative to a worksheet. One thing that I really saw a lot of when I went to elementary was worksheets. Work. That's all that I saw. Worksheets. I'm like, please kill death to worksheets. So I took 2 teachers' classes. And we went outside to do a math dash. And so this is how it works. I am the person that has the cards. And if you can't see these, they have math questions on them. Okay. And so we start out with 2 classes. And so if you would hold this, you're going to be one class. You're going to be a separate class.
Don't make me lose.
All right.
So,
okay, it doesn't matter. So we have our classes, and now this will be 2 teachers' classes. But if you were one teacher, you want to split your class, you can do that too. So I have my teachers with their boards, and they will be off to the side because they're going to do a ready-made intervention. Okay. And then I have the students walk up when it's their turn. They also have whiteboards. Okay. And so once I flash this, the students are going to try to solve the problem as fast as they can using their whiteboard. Whichever student gets it right first, I hand that kid the card. They just want a point. And then they go to the end of the line. The student that didn't win this card is going to have to go over to their teacher. We're going to say they were in Jay's class. They have to go over to Jay for a quick intervention where they have to show they know how to solve that problem. Or if they don't, he's going to kind of give them a little feedback. Then they're going to go to the end of the line, and the next 2 kids are going to step up. And now we have a math dash going. So the teacher should check. Yes. And so what happens is then we flip to the next card and the next one, and we're going through And what you're going to do is immediately you're going to get an intervention going with the students, because you're not only testing if they know how to solve the problem, but how fast. And some students, they can solve it, but just not fast. So if you gave them another couple of minutes, they would finish it up, and then you let them go to the end of the line, and then you keep the lines going. So that's the math dash. If you're finding a way, you could have took those same problems off of the worksheet. You just put them on the cards, and then you let the kids go, and you see whichever team wins. You give them something or nothing at all. But the real gift is you got to get out of the classroom for a minute.
Right.
We did it outside. We had sidewalk chalk where they could go and work the problems on the ground. It's really not very expensive at all, but it gets them up and moving around and competing, because competing is a very important element in the fresh classroom. Competition is key.
And you got to plan, teach, and reflect on all your activities. FYI.
Awesome.
Well, okay. I have a lot now that you guys have talked. Stuff started coming back to me.
Only one.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, only one. Dang it. Which one am I going to talk about? First, I just want to say you can always go to iExcel Math. Okay, that is very, very fun, and it's very inexpensive for parents or teachers or school. That's always something too. That's not my activity, but I just want to throw that out there. Another thing, my favorite thing to do is to make up songs in my classroom. Every time that I am teaching something, I don't know, it just comes automatically, and then me and my kids get real hyped about it, and then we write it down, okay? So one of the things that I did in my classroom this year, and I've shared this on Facebook, was a division rap, because they were struggling so much in division. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'll just give you some of the beat. And then Stephanie can share it in her post with the kind of the lyrics. So the first thing I teach my kids to do is just to write their facts. And what I mean by that is like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Because if they can write those out and know them, then it's easier for them to kind of divide or multiply, okay? So the division rap is like, write your facts. I said, write your facts. Can 4 fit inside of 8? Can 4 fit inside of 8? I said, yes, it can. Yes, it can. How many times? I said 2 times. Now multiply. So we do kind of like hand movements and different things like that. And I told my parents, and I actually posted it in Class Dojo, kind of tried to send a video, but I didn't get a chance to send a video, but I showed them at parent conference. And I had parents saying, what's that rap again? Because they know that the kids were like struggling at home. And how I made the wrap up is I was doing tutoring with my lowest kids. That's why I say you have to teach to the lowest kids. And if you can reach those low kids, then you can reach the high ones, because you have made it simple enough that everybody can get it. Don't try to reach that one and bring it down. Go low, then go high. So my kids, the next day, my tutoring kids taught the whole class, and that's how we kind of got it out. But I love competition. We do competition division, competition multiplication, those facts. Kids love competition. You can give them anything from the treasure box. They work good in teams. You can have them running up to the boards. I mean, all type of stuff like that will help them just loving to do math, making the classroom fun. No one wants to sit all day and listen. Not even me. I get tortured in training. That's what makes me think of all kind of ideas when I'm in professional development. Sometimes, not all of them, but I'm thinking, if kids have to sit this long, I'm dying right now. Let me figure out a way to help them so that they can move around, go to different tables, and have fun and learn, and leave that day and say, it wasn't school, it was a fun environment. So that's my thing. And we will post this if you need it to help you out a little bit.
We'll post the rap, and we'll post the Mathalicious. I was going to say Bootylicious. Mathalicious. We're going to post those too. But before we go, we want to answer this last question. So the Fresh Classroom stands for fun, relevant, engaging, standards-based, and higher order. So tell me, what aspects would you consider most important in increasing math achievement, especially with students of color? Fun, relevant, engaging, standards-based, or higher order? Or can you choose?
I think all of them.
Yeah, I think all of them.
I really think all of them.
I think the most important one, though, is relevant.
Yeah, relevance.
I think if you embed the cultural relevancy inside the relevance, that is what actually resonates with the students the most. So if you're able to you're able to make the content relevant to each particular student you have in your classroom, or what ethnicity are they, or what socioeconomic background they come from, you can tailor your instruction to everybody in the classroom that is a culturally relevant manner, for them to understand. You know what I'm saying? So I think that embedding that into the R part of Fresh is the best way to really engage with the students at that point.
Okay. I think it needs to be, I love all of them. Thank you. Kudos to you. I think it needs to be an equal balance too. Yeah. Because we want to make it fun, but I also need you to learn and be on grade level. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, and be able to reach those scores that are needed to go to college and know why we need them to go to college. And so if a teacher is able to really hit all those things, you may not hit them all the time, but if your goal is to hit those things, then I think that your class will be engaging. It will be fun. And kids will always remember the techniques that you have taught them, because when it becomes hard, they'll say, Miss Copeland taught me how to do it this way. And now I know why I need it, because now I'm in algebra and now I know what X means. Not just the X or Y, Nobody ever knows what that means. And so now that most of us are business owners, it's like, oh, I need to figure out how many shirts, or how, you know what I mean? Like, now, but I didn't know back then, and nobody could tell me. Yeah, and so it gets real, but we have to have people to tell us early enough so we can know how to prepare for it. So.
Well, amen. All right. So we are winding down on our Fresh Chat tonight. I want to thank my guest for joining me, but I also want to get to a couple questions or comments to kind of see what they were. Yeah,
but in my class, to help with behavior management, I did give them jobs. And not only did I give them jobs, all of them had to interview, and they got a day rate a timesheet that they sign into every single day. And at the end of the week, we calculate how much they've earned, and I write them a little PV check, because I went to PV. And so I write them a PV check, and then maybe once a month or and a half, we have a store, and they have to know how to spend that money. And I'm trying to teach them how to do it now. Now, the good thing about it, most of my girls do not spend all of their money. They say, I am saving it for the next time. Wow. So my money can build up. And I started doing an auction, and now they know that if I have the most money, I can get what I want, because I can go against someone that did not save. And so that's what's really tripping me out about everything, that they're being wise at 9 years old. And so hopefully we can get to the point where I can say, okay, now you want to buy this business from Ms. Copeland, who's going to run it now? And so you have to have this amount of money to run it. So we'll see. You know what? I might do that. I might give them the challenge to do that. So,
y'all ready to get to some questions?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I have somebody, Nicole. She shared. I don't think it's a question. She says, I put my son's allowance and cell phone money in his account monthly. So she has opened him up an account. He's responsible for paying his bill monthly. I'm thinking about adding haircut money to his monthly deposit. That sounds like a good idea too.
Teaches
responsibility and some math, accountability. Teach her about giving tithes. She's laughing at my mama for making me pay tithes. Some people are saying let that baby be a child. I love the idea of teaching kids, but let that kid be a kid earlier. Okay. So I think there is a question. A big barrier is vocabulary comprehension. Somebody said here.
Vocabulary is good.
Flocabulary
on YouTube.
Flocabulary.
And they make up songs and different things like that. Like today we were listening to one.
Okay. And they really, if you see how really these students are so much more musically inclined. I think we all love music, but the way that the amount of music they consume these days, like it's so high that I feel like if you can tap into that for educational purposes, vocabulary has it down. They have a rap about how to do just about anything, any subject area. My students used to love it. Even the most reluctant students that thought they were too cool when I was at the intermediate level, you would still catch them like trying to be cool, and they'd be looking over like at the TV like,
It's really cool.
Still feeling it because the beats
and it can be a brain break too. Just to kind of get up and move around. So.
Yes, but that's a really good one for vocabulary comprehension. Hey, Chair, she said, I love vocabulary. Yes, it's really awesome. I think that was the only, anything else about vocabulary comprehension. For me, a big thing with vocabulary with my students, I started doing house points where I would keep these sheets of paper, one for each class, just taped to the wall. Again, I love cheap stuff that didn't cost me a lot of money. I would take a marker when I heard students in the class using the vocabulary for that week or past vocabulary, I would tally up points. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, we would compete for who had been using their vocabulary the most often and in the right context. And then they would get rewarded for that. So that was one way I encouraged them to use the words correctly and in a context. All right. I think that's all of the questions we have. Once again, I want to thank y'all for joining me on the couch tonight for Fresh Chats with Steph. Thank you all for joining us, those that hopped in and hopped out. We appreciate you too. And until next time, make sure you're keeping it freaking fresh in the classroom.
Fresh Chats with Steph is brought to you by thefreshclassroom.com. Are you ready to get fresh? If so, head on over.